Hey everyone, welcome back to the End of the Internet podcast. I am your host, Gonzalo, and if you've reached us, congratulations, you found your way to the end of the internet. Today we'll be presenting you with the fourth episode of our podcast, in which we will be discussing video games as a whole. We'll be talking about the art form, the systems that we owned, and how much fun we've had playing these games. We did a very specific corner of video games with our last episode about fighting games, and today we decided to broaden that to all of gaming. All of the games that we've played, that we've looked in on, have studied, watched, enjoyed, consumed, mastered, and never even played. We kind of go through the systems that we owned, all of the games that really stood out to us, some interesting tidbits here and there from our life growing up and our experiences. I think the whole fandom can relate to at least one of these stories that we're going to share with you guys today. I give a bit of an intro as to why we are talking about this subject in the actual podcast, but suffice it to say, we thought it good to talk about the broad strokes of our fandoms, and then later on, as this podcast continues to grow, we can get more specific. We feel like we should start with a few conversations on a macro level, and then we can get into the micro. I had a lot of fun recording this episode, and I think Marcus did as well. I'll be joined by him, as always. We really hope that you guys enjoy this episode. We really appreciate the attention, the likes, the shares, the conversations, the pats on the back when people come up to us and go, hey, I listened to the newest episode, it was really good, it was really fun, and it's something maybe we hoped for but didn't necessarily expect. So thank you for all the kind words, thank you for the support. As always, like, subscribe, share if you can, and we really do thank you guys from the bottom of our hearts for just taking the time out of your day. Even if you listen to 18 minutes of an episode, that was 18 minutes you could have been doing other things. So we really appreciate that. And without further delay, here's our discussion on video games, what they mean to us, and how much fun we've had over the years playing them. We hope you guys enjoy the show. Okay, so today we're going to be covering video games as a whole. We're going to be talking about the medium, the things that we love and hate about both. Marcus had come up with a really good reason as to why we could do something like this. I had asked him about not necessarily doing well, what does this mean to us from start to finish? And he raised a good point, saying that this will be the foundation for the podcast itself. So if we ever want to get very detailed about a specific game, about a specific topic, a piece of art or movie, this is going to cover what it means to us in general. So it's the groundwork, the foundation, the blueprint of who we are and why we do this. So, Marcus, you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, so like Gonzalo was saying, one of the things that I think is crucial is kind of understanding where we come from and how we grew up. As much as we kind of said that we didn't want to always go back to our childhood and continually talk about the things we grew up with, I think it's just extremely beneficial, not only for the podcast, but for the viewers out there to kind of see how we grew up and why we like the things we like. So it becomes more open, you get a better understanding of where we're coming from. So today's topic, of course, is going to be about video games and gaming as a whole. And again, I feel like we have to start with what we started growing up with, you know what I mean? Internet, I promise, at some point we will go back to these, childhood memories. But God damn it, we're going to go.
Yeah, and last week was a very specific niche of the video game community. We were talking about fighting games and why we love them, but we're broadening the subject today to all of video games.
All of it, everything.
Computer games, console gaming, arcade games, virtual reality, mobile games, anything that excuse me, could be described as a video game and their impact, what they mean to us, and why they have shaped and marked so much of who we are. Why, again, so much of this podcast and these conversations are going to be about this kind of stuff. You know? It's good to kind of like go back and think of all the reasons why this stuff is important. So
I think if you were to get like a pie chart of what makes us, and you were to dissect everything, and I'm talking about all the cool things, the pop culture stuff, video games is a big piece of both of us.
Yeah.
And I would assume that if you're listening to this, if you've subscribed, if you liked any of our videos, then you know exactly where we're coming from when it comes to, you know, these little things. And if you don't, but you find it interesting, then stay tuned, because I hope that, you know, we're going to continue to interest you.
Yeah, and a large bulk of these podcasts are going to be conversations about the stuff that we love. And if that is something that does not necessarily appeal to you, you know, best tune out now.
Yeah. Or let us know in the comments, hey, I want you to talk more about this thing or that thing. If we touched on something,
they're not gonna not be conversations though.
That's
you know
true.
What I mean? So, and they're always going to be about very specific, sweaty
topics. Book off the internet.
But I did think it was a good idea. I think, you know, in the future we will probably have an episode that is about movies in general, comic books in general, the art forms that we follow and why we follow them and are inspired by them and driven to make and consume so much of it. We'll probably do breakdowns of these things before we get into more specific topics. And we've already have a few topics lined up, and I'm excited for them. You know, the things that we were discussing before we started recording, which will be a lot of fun to talk about and debate and laugh about when we get there. But for now, we're going to talk about video games. So do you want to start?
Yeah, so again, going back to the whole, like, growing up video games and stuff, obviously, for majority of the people in the world, especially in our age range, first game I ever played was not Mario. It was actually an Atari, and it was a game called Battle Tanks. And that was the very first thing I ever got to play. But I'm not going to talk about that. I'm just going to throw that out there for history's sake. The first game I remember, the first game that I fell in love with, the first game that I spent hours and hours playing, of course, was Mario. My brother got an NES.
When you say Mario, you mean Super Mario Brothers?
Yeah, NES, Super Mario. He got an NES. I don't know if it was for his birthday or Christmas. I'm sure that he'll shoot out a comment or correct me on that. But anyways, he got it. He played the hell out of it, and then eventually I got to, you know, play when he wasn't playing with it. And that was my introduction to video games before I knew what the hell they actually were, home console and stuff like that. And so many damn good memories playing that damn game. It just, from the simple music from the first stage to the jumping around and all the little enemies, like, if there is a game that feels like home, if there is a game that just, you just want to pick up and play, that's the game. Like, I get so warm and heartfelt, like, when I think about Mario. It does feel like walking
into grandma's house.
It does.
You hear,
oh my god, it's so good, you know. And I always kind of realized that there were two kind of people who played Mario games. There were people like me who held down I don't know if it was A or B, but the run button and would run through the game and you know, collect the coins, and people who walked through the entire stage collecting every little coin and hitting every little enemy. That shit annoys the fuck out of me. But I mean, hey, to each their own, however you played. But that was my first initial venture into it. That's what started it all. You know, I all the Atari games, they were cool. You know, it was something different. But I don't think I ever played an Atari game for more than 20 minutes. You know, nothing ever really caught my attention or, you know, grabbed my imagination and sent me on a roller coaster. Like, no, Mario was the first game that did that, and that's where it all began, right there. So I will forever be in debt to Mario, to Nintendo, anyone a part of that series. Thank you so much. If you're listening to this podcast, which I know you're not, thank you. What about you?
I can't remember exactly what it was. I think it was probably some arcade cabinet. I must have been super young. I remember there was an old Star Wars sit-down arcade that it was kind of like first person, and it had these like green outlines for the representation of like TIE fighters and shit like that. I remember playing that as a little kid and really being enthralled. And I think I had an Atari for a small while. I played a game called Demon Attack for the Atari, and I played a lot of Demon Attack. And yeah, then like you said, like Battle Tanks, Frogger, Pac-Man, I think it was called Kaboom or Babam or something. I think it was Kaboom for the Atari, and it's just like a robber dropping big bombs, and you have like a pail of water that you have to catch.
What the hell?
Yeah, I really enjoy those games. Those are the games that I played at first. They're rudimentary games. They're very, very simple.
Yeah, I remember Frogger. Frogger was actually kind of fun.
Yeah, Space Invaders, things like that. You know, whatever you could get your hands on. They were cheap at the time. But even then, I remember playing Atari games and not being satisfied. Like, this wasn't something that I was going to do forever. You know? So it was just something to pass the time.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I played Super Mario Brothers that I was kind of hooked into, like, oh, I want to keep doing this. You know, but Super Mario Brothers, and then I would frequent, like, Chuck E. Cheese or something and play Afterburner or Ghouls and Ghosts or Altered Beast. Altered Beast was a big one for me at the arcade. I played, like, laundromats or any random place where they had arcade machines. They used to be everywhere. And then eventually Street Fighter 2.
Yeah.
But yeah, once at home, being able to play regularly in Oregon, I think you could do it anywhere, but we would go to Albertsons and we would rent a Nintendo, and I could rent a game, and it would come
I had saw that people would rent out systems. I think Blockbuster or Hollywood Video, somebody would rent out system, and I was like, how the fuck does that work? And I never asked. I was like, I don't know how that works. I'm sure we don't have the money. You know what I mean? Like, so I never asked about that until...
We would rent out VCRs, too. They'd come in these big plastic cases that you
kids like, what a VCR is. Not just kidding.
And the same thing happened with the Nintendo. They'd be like in these huge plastic cases, and it would be like locked. You couldn't break it open and keep the system or whatever. But that's what we do. We rent a system for the weekend, and I'd play like Super Mario Brothers or something. Got really into it, and eventually cousins would get
a system.
Yeah, they'd get a system.
You would play at their house, spend summers there, shit. I mean, we used to spend summers at each other's houses, and it was usually always determined on who had the system. You know?
Yeah, I remember. I think the systems that I got as I was growing up, I got an Atari 2600, and I eventually got a Sega Master System, which was
wow.
Yeah, I didn't really care for it, but I was thankful to have a video game system. And I remember Double Dragon on that was really weird. Like the colors were kind of off, like the outfits and shit, and the levels were different. But so now whenever I see like a Master System cartridge or a Master System, like I think in regular show Mordecai and what's his name?
I don't remember their names, but I just know Mordecai.
Yeah, and God, I've been obsessing over that show. God, is it Rigby?
Oh yeah, Rigby. Yeah.
Right?
And if it's not, then I just got excited for nothing. Yeah. But I think it's Rigby, Mordecai and Rigby. That sounds so right. Oh, this looks
Mordecai
awful.
And Rigby. But Mordecai and Rigby are playing a Sega Master System in a couple of episodes, and then I eventually was lucky enough to get a Nintendo. I got an NES, and when I lived, like the last few years I lived in Oregon, my mom got me a Sega Genesis, which was fucking fun. I fucking loved Sega Genesis, and eventually got a Super Nintendo, and on throughout the as I got into like high school and stuff, it was much easier for me to get the system that I wanted.
Yeah. Usually systems and video game purchases were always like a birthday thing. Like I never got them for the holidays. I always got action figures. Like action figures were the thing that I got, a lot of toys. But when it came to my birthday, I think it's where I've gotten every major system was on a birthday. Like my mom surprised me with a Super Nintendo. I think it had been out for about a year, and I got that for my birthday. And I remember, because our tradition was that she would always wake us up like an hour and a half early before we needed to wake up. So almost 2 hours before I had to go to school. We'd blow out the candles. That was the whole thing. They'd come into a dark room with the cake lit with candles. So they would wake you up and you'd be like, oh my God, go away. But then my mom busts out this giant box, and when I ripped the wrapping off, it's fucking a Super Nintendo, and it had Super Mario World with it. Yeah. So me and my brother, like, we woke up, like, eyes wide open, woke up, fucking plugged that shit in, and I remember we got dressed really fast just so we could play a good 45 minutes of Super Mario World, and that was some of the fucking greatest memories I've had with that damn thing. And
I got a Super Nintendo for Christmas the first year we moved to Texas. When we first moved to Texas, and I was in 5th grade that Christmas, I got a Super Nintendo with Super Mario World. I fucking love that game.
Still one of the best Mario games ever.
It's my personal favorite Mario game. And I remember like being a kid in Oregon and going and staying with friends or getting picked up at the same time from friends' houses or cousins, and we would play like Double Dragon, Double Dragon 2, The Revenge, and we'd like pause the game and then catch our bus or walk to school and then come back after school and hope it was still, like paused.
Yeah.
It's like our save state, But a lot of times it just would not. Either the system would just overheat
or something,
or a parent would come and just like turn everything off.
Yep.
Like, damn it.
Yeah, we figured out to put something in front of the red light so it wasn't on, and then just turn the TV off and close our door and have a fan on so you couldn't hear like the electricity from the TV. I guess you could say, like, that energy. The little. So we figured that out. But we did that a couple of times. I think I want to say I owned every major system like since the beginning from Super Nintendo. Like, I mean, major system. I mean, obviously I didn't have a fucking Virtual Boy. Who the fuck wanted that? But the Super NES, the PlayStation N64, PlayStation 2. I mean, even I had a Game Boy Advance, SP, DS, all of them. But I don't think I ever could recapture the two feelings I had. One, waking up for my birthday and getting the Super Nintendo, or the memory I have of my mom taking me for I don't even remember how old I was, 13 years old. I don't remember when the 64 came out, but being able to go get an N64 at Toys R Us. Oh my God. Funny little story though. I went with a friend at the time, my buddy. There was only 2 games available at Toys R Us. And it was Mario 64 and Cruisin' USA. And this fucking dude talked me into getting Cruisin' USA. And I just wanted to feel accepted and like the cool guy. Like, yeah, I got an N64. And I bought Cruisin' USA because it made my friend happy. And it was an okay buy. I mean, I had fun with Cruisin' USA. It wasn't the best, but I was like...
But it wasn't one of the greatest games ever made.
Yes. So I think 2 or 3 years later, I was able to get Mario 64 in like a bargain bin because it would have been out for a couple of years.
Nice.
Played it and went, this is the greatest fucking Mario game I've ever played, and I was furious with myself. And that's when I was like, I will never do that again. I will never buy something because someone was like, you should get this because we will have fun. I was like, no, I will have fun. So I'm sorry, Mario 64. I was very late to that adventure.
Of a decision.
Oh my God.
I remember I had like not the same kind of scenario, but it reminded me one year I had a PlayStation. I was in high school and I was counting down the days for Electronics Boutique, which was still a store, to get their copy of Marvel Superheroes that was coming out for the PlayStation. And me being a big comics fan and a big fighting game sweaty, all I could think of was that, right? And I didn't often get like video game publications, so I wasn't aware of like release times. I just had to call the stores and stuff. So, and I lived kind of out of town of the city that I live in now. Drove in about 25 minutes, went to EB, and when I went to go grab my copy of Marvel Superheroes, there was Castlevania Symphony of the Night. It was sitting right next to it. Ooh. And I was like, what is this? I didn't even know there was a new Castlevania game coming out. So I grabbed them. I was holding them both in my hand, and I was like, I flipped it back, and I was just like, I had been dying for months to play Marvel Superheroes at home. And I could not buy it. I just put Marvel down, and I took Symphony of the Night home with me. I was like, this looks like it's going to be a better purchase, and I am always thankful that I did.
I would have never, ever guessed you would have done something like that.
Yeah. I just, there is no reality where I didn't pick Symphony of the Night. Like,
wow.
It was I had to have that game, and I've played it probably 40 million times.
Doing this podcast, I have learned some things about you, and that is probably one of the greatest things I've learned about. I would have never guessed that. You could have bet me money on which one you picked. I'm like, fucking the fighting game, of
right.
course.
The comic book fighting game.
Yeah, the comic book fighting game where you can be Wolverine. Like, no,
or Spider-Man or Iron Man.
Yeah.
But
wow, that's fucking... And Symphony of the Night is another one of those games that I was so late to the party. Like, I didn't know... So, the Castlevania series has always been a series that I loved because of the lore and because of what it... Like, the content. I wasn't a big fan of the NES Castlevanias. I did not hate them. I mean, they were okay, but even then, which is just like, what did you have as an example... I always felt they were kind of sluggish, a little tankish controls. Like, I wasn't always too thrilled with the control scheme. Maybe that was just my scrubbery, talking.
Well, like, if you can basically run in Super Mario Brothers. You can't run with Simon. Like in Trevor.
And
they kind of crawl around. Kind of like
very lumbering.
Like the Double Dragon characters.
Yeah. But even then, I feel like in Double Dragon, there's ways to move quicker versus in Castlevania, it's like, no, you have 2 speeds and that's it.
I think it's also like in Double Dragon, it was multi-level, so you can go up and down on the screen.
Yeah.
Whereas
that
Castlevania is just
shot, that 2D
one plane
side scrolling.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've always appreciated Castlevania, and I've always wanted to love it. and but I didn't like the NES ones enough to like say, oh yeah, these are great games. I was like, oh, they're pretty cool. I liked watching people play because I love the music, you know.
God, it's
and then
my
of course,
actual ringtone on my phone is the boss music for Castlevania.
Yes, it is
the NES one.
And then it wasn't until the Super NES Castlevania, what was it, Castlevania 4?
Yeah.
That I was like, oh shit, this is a proper Castlevania. But I never got to own it. Like I never had the money to buy it. And then every time I did have a chance to buy it, there was always something that was
else,
a little more like to my liking. And it was never a purchase that was like, oh man, I screwed up, I should have got that one. It was never a Cruising USA purchase.
Yeah.
But it wasn't, and I didn't even know how I fucking came across. I think you fucking told me about Symphony of the Night. And
I have Castlevania Symphony of the Night on every system that it's available for.
And I do too now.
I have my PlayStation disc still, and I also have it on my PS3. I have it on my PS4. Like
yeah, and then someone was like, "Oh yeah, you can put it on your phone." I was like, "Get that shit on my phone.
Yeah,
I will play that on my phone." But Symphony of the Night, I absolutely fell in love with. So it will always be my all-time, the greatest Castlevania game ever made. You know, for me. I liked the Sega one. What was it, Bloodlines or whatever?
Bloodlines.
Like I liked that. That was not bad. I did play the Game Boy Advance ones. Aria Sorrow and Harmony of Dissonance. All those. Those are all cool. There was one that was really fucking good, and I almost beat it to completion. I used to work at a GameStop, and so I would play it on downtimes. There, it wasn't mine. It was a copy that we were trying to sell, a used copy, and I almost, and then someone bought it, and I never got to beat it. But yeah, no, fucking Castlevania Symphony of the Night. And to this day, anytime that there's some kind of remake or if it gets released on a new system, if it came out on the Switch tomorrow, $20, $30,
yeah,
buying it. I'm about to buy the PS4 one when I get paid because I love that game. It's just a phenomenal game. But that's one series that I wish I could say, no, I loved every game. I played every game. Like, no, it wasn't until Symphony.
I don't know if there's like a series where every single game is good. I think that
Mario.
Like maybe
for me,
yeah,
personally, like I mean, besides the shitty,
that'd probably be the and we're not talking tie-ins.
Mario
Party doesn't count. You know,
no, I'm talking like
but like just core, like Galaxy, Sunshine,
yeah,
64,
all of those. I think they were all.
Yeah, they're all good games. That would probably be the closest of
Zelda.
any series that has it. I think that some of the Zelda games people could do without.
I think there's only really one that I hear people complain about. Like it's usually Skyward Sword and
Twilight Princess.
Maybe Twilight Princess, but I think Twilight Princess gets a bad rap because of the control scheme on the Wii.
But still, it's not universally heralded as a good game. You know, it's like still a little divisive. Whereas all the Mario Brothers, all the Mario games, everybody seems to think they're pretty good. They're all pretty good. You know,
that's one of those games that you can fucking like. That franchise is reinvent the wheel a couple of times, but it's the same thing, and it's fantastic. Mario. Yeah, it's like they're all kind of the same, but not really.
Yeah, but I mean,
the same, and
what are you coming back from? Coming back from
Mario. That's what I'm saying. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. That's why it's so great because it's like you just keep innovating the same shit. And it's just fun. It's like, oh, I'm not playing another Mario 64. I'm playing a new Mario, and I know what I'm in for. But then you're gonna throw some shit at me that's like, I've never seen that before. That's cool.
Yeah. And going back to like cool. Castlevania, I think Symphony of the Night broke that series, and it's a perfect game in my opinion. But every game afterward that tried to recapture that lightning in a bottle just could not do it. Mm-mm. And it's so obviously trying to be Symphony of the Night that it's almost embarrassing at times. And not that those games didn't have a lot of creativity behind them or a lot of love. And I think like the lore is fantastic. It's crazy cool. Mm-hmm. I love all that shit. And that it even goes into the future, but can't live up to what Symphony of the Night was. Yeah. And I think that we had talked in the horror podcast about how James Cameron couldn't replicate what Ridley Scott was doing, so didn't even try. He made his own thing, right?
Exactly.
So when it comes to there was another franchise I was just thinking about that did something similar. Like instead of trying to replicate what the previous game did, it was the Metroid series. So after Super Metroid, there wasn't really a Metroid game that was like that on another home console. They started the Prime series, and that was totally different. They're like, we're not going to try and follow in the shadow of a fucking masterpiece. Let's make this franchise something else.
And I love the Prime series.
A lot of people love the Prime series. I don't like them, but they're
really
good games.
I get it. That would be like turning fucking a Legend of Zelda game into like Skyrim. It's like, oh, it's in first person view. It's like I don't want to do that. I want to play what I want to play. But I loved the Prime series. I thought it was really good.
But I like that. I think it was good for them to like take that kind of chance. And
I
think like fucking what's it called?
Don't at me.
Donkey Kong is another series that like Donkey Kong Country is so different from original Donkey Kong, and they're fantastic. You know,
Yeah.
like Donkey Kong Country is a great series, a great franchise.
I never played the Donkey Kong 64 series. I heard a lot of good things about it, but I never played it because I wanted to play side-scrolling Super NES Donkey Kong. So when they came out with what was it? Was it Donkey Kong Country Returns and the Arctic one? I was like, dude, and those are fucking games. Not only do they recapture what you remember from the Super NES, those games are fucking hard.
Yeah,
wonderful.
I saw some video on the Tropical for
Tropical
Switch.
Freeze. There you go. Yeah. I couldn't remember. The Arctic Freeze guy.
But I guess it came out on the Wii U first, and then they ported it to the Switch.
Yeah.
And that game looks like fun. I was like, oh man, if I were as hard a DK fan as I thought I was,
I bought it on the Wii U,
game,
and I played the shit out of it.
Yeah,
and then a friend of mine, Raymond, shout out, he bought it for me on the Switch, so I have it again.
Oh,
so I was like, yeah, so I'm like, oh hell yeah, because I love my Wii U, but
you can speedrun that game, so that's cool.
Yeah, it's fucking hard though.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like. What was your favorite system of all time?
Ooh. Favorite system of all time? Oh my god, bro! Why are you doing this to me?
What is the kind of cover? Because I was like all the systems that I owned, like it's interesting, but I had a PS1. I never had a 64. The last Nintendo console that I owned was a Super Nintendo. Cut to now, I have an NES and SNES Mini, but I had a 32X. I still have my Sega Dreamcast, PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4. Never owned an Xbox, but I've been best friends with you forever, and you've always had an Xbox, so I've always played Xbox games with you.
I had the OG Xbox, and then I had the 360, and I have an Xbox One now that's collecting dust, but that's just because there is no Halo title that is resurrecting that game, or a Gears of War series game that's resurrecting that for me.
I came dangerously close to saving up for an Xbox 360 because I love the Gears of War franchise so much. Playing that with you is one of the best times I had playing it. That was a fucking fun-ass co-op game. It's beautiful. The game is awesome. I really, really enjoyed it. But I would play, like, Mario Golf with my family.
I love Mario Golf!
On the GameCube, and I really, really like Mario Golf. Just the one on the GameCube, I like that one. I never liked the Mario Party games.
Let's go. Dude, I can't... That's a hard one to answer because I feel like that... It's like...
But
okay.
like, your favorite is a little easier than what you think is the best.
No, I know. I 100% understand your question because my favorite, like, it's like, okay, I want to say the Super Nintendo because it had some of the greatest fucking, like, memories.
Give into that feeling.
but then I'm like, no, my Xbox, because I poured millions of hours of myself into Halo. Like, I was becoming a Halo fanatic. Like, there was no other game. When the Halo series was out, when the first one and the second one and the third... There were no other games. Do you
think that's kind of like, that's proof that the Xbox isn't the best system? That was just like your favorite game?
Well, no, because one of the things about the Xbox that I love that no other system was able to do, and that with the technology we have, they still can't do, was first, well, now you got something. Okay, so with that the OG Xbox, one of the things that I love was that you could put
kill a man with it.
Yeah,
it's like dropping on.
You could put your own soundtrack into any and every game, and that was fucking phenomenal because I used the shit out of that. It's like, and it wasn't some weird like, oh, it's just gonna overlay and sound crappy. No, it was like adding your own soundtrack into the game. I remember playing, I think one of the GTA, was it San Andreas, that you had an option to play music from the car radio, but using your hard drive music, and I thought that was phenomenal. The wrestling games, we would use a little memory card slot, and we would actually add in, I think I had 1,000 songs in my Xbox, and I had special categories for the WWE games because we would use the music to make our own stuff, like even, copyrighted, shit that weren't supposed to be in there. Like we were, I think we would make like a fake Hulk Hogan, and we would have the "I'm a real man," all that stuff. Like that was phenomenal. So using the Xbox and the soundtrack was awesome. The fact that it was like the biggest hard drive I had ever seen, and the internal hard drive was fantastic. When they finally redesigned the S controller, that controller became the staple, to most controllers. So I want to say the Xbox as overall. I mean, it's Xbox Live. Xbox Live was the best thing ever. Like, I wouldn't go online with... I remember trying to go online with a PlayStation 2 to play Killzone. And that being one of the most atrocious fucking things and very painful to do. And we had good internet at the time, time speaking. But Xbox Live was... I mean, I never had any issues with that. It was so good. So... half of me wants to say Xbox, the other half of me wants to say the Super Nintendo. But I guess there's just been a piece of my heart for every system I've ever owned.
But been like a lovely section for it.
yeah. I mean, I can make pro and con lists all day, my love letters to all my systems. But I think I hate to fucking cop out on you, but honestly, I'd have to say it's a tie between the Xbox and the Super Nintendo. Like, N64 is kind of going, you don't remember all the fun times we had? It's like, yes, and I love you, but if I were to try to give a title to my most favorite system of all time...
It is a cop-out.
It is a ridiculous... The X Nintendo, that's what it is. That's my favorite system of all time. The X Super NES X 360. I guess Super Nintendo. If I have to choose, if there's a gun to my head, Super Nintendo, because it has all the games that I absolutely love. Like, when you ask me, like, top 5 games, usually my top 5 games are always Super Nintendo games, and I have to, like, physically go, no, let me throw something else in there. You know what I mean? So, then I guess, the Super Nintendo would probably be my most favorite system of all time.
Yeah. I think it's like the Xbox had... maybe your favorite game of all time, or for a long period of time, I guess. I wouldn't say that like Combat Evolved is your favorite game of all time, is it?
No. If I were ever to put a Halo game in there, it'd probably be Halo 2, possibly 3, but 2 for sure would make a top 5, maybe, or top 10, maybe top 5, but top 10 for sure. Like Halo, like if it's not 6, you know what I mean? Like it barely misses on the top 5.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd easily say that the SNES is my favorite system. It had so many games. The graphical advancement between the NES and the SNES was out of this world. I could not believe what I was looking at. The music, the games, the breadth of the library. It introduced me to RPGs and all sorts of other things. And just when you thought that it was dying, it was still kicking out badass games. Like the last handful of games that came out for that system are really good, and what it was able to achieve at the end of its life was quite impressive. But I never had more fun playing. So I remember if I rented a random game for the SNES, I'm sorry, it's so hard for me to say SNES. I just don't like to say SNES.
I'm not a big
like,
SNES
and SNES guy. Like, I just cannot say it. And maybe one day I'll change.
To say SNES.
There's a lot of communities that like to say SNES.
Yeah, no. SNES.
But I'm uncomfortable saying it for some reason. I just can't
uncomfortable
say it.
saying that.
Like saying SNES makes it sound like I'm trying to say SNES. I don't say it. Anyway. But whenever I would rent a game for the SNES, I would 9 times out of 10 enjoy myself. And when I would rent games for the Nintendo or the Sega Genesis, a lot of times I was disappointed. When I'd play my old NES and I would rent a game at Albertsons or any.
Yeah, there were a
ton of disappointing games, and the same with the Sega Genesis. They're very.
I feel like there was 10 good NES games, and if you didn't have those by the time the NES was ending, like there was no real.
There's like a fucking butt ton of good games for the NES, but I didn't discover them until way later in my life. The SNES, I feel like 9 times out of 10, I rent a game like, this looks good, and I play it, and like, that was good.
Yeah,
that was a lot of fun. I remember, I can't even think of when this happened, but I ended up renting King of the Monsters for my SNES, and I hung out with some cousins, and we played that for hours, man, into like the morning. The sun was coming up, like, we need to go to bed. Like, your mom's gonna get up and she's gonna kick our ass. We were playing fucking King of the Monsters all night, and that game was hard and pretty frustrating, but I still loved it to pieces. Even the games that were like Mortal Kombat, the first Mortal Kombat that had sweat instead of blood and the fatalities were all edited and shit.
Yeah.
I still liked it better than the Genesis version.
It played smoother.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to me,
and
at
it
least.
Looked better.
Yeah, it did.
I liked the Street Fighter series on it, but all of the like first party games were fucking fantastic, man. Like,
yeah, I feel like Turtles in Time played way better than what was it, the Manhattan Project or whatever.
Hyperstone Heist.
Hyperstone Heist. There you go.
Manhattan Project was the third NES one.
That's right. I love that game. Dude. That game was so good. But yeah, I felt that it just like even though there was at times where the Sega game looked like kind of cooler because it looked grittier. I was just confused with lesser graphics or like making up with it, but. I felt Turtles in Time.
Yeah, the Genesis would shine when it didn't try to emulate anyone else. When
the
Genesis did what the Genesis does, God, it was good.
Did you do that on purpose?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, you totally did.
That was just on...
With Nintendo!
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, I was like...
That was pretty good. So how much this is, like, ingrained in us. Like, it's in the root of us. Like, that must have been somewhere in the back of my head. Like,
that was, dude. Oh, my God.
But, yeah, like I was just looking at, like, a game like Shining Force 2... for the Sega Genesis, and it's like, how did this game get made? And they would make a game like Phantasy Star, and it just doesn't look as good. And they're kind of like, they're both like JRPGs. Shining Force 2 takes place in this fanciful world with elves and warriors and wizards and shit, and then Phantasy Star 4 takes place like in this science fiction monster setting, right? And they both have like little comic panel cutscenes and stuff and animation. And I believe Phantasy Star 4 came out after Shining Force 2, but Shining Force just looks so much better. And I don't know, even, like, I bet anybody who is well-versed in video games could hear a track from Sega Genesis, not even looking at it and go, oh, that's the Sega Genesis game.
Yeah, there's always that weird little, right? Yeah, there's always that weird little, like...
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Digital echo thing.
That's exactly what I mean. Shining Force has none of that, which is really weird. I never noticed until last week. I was, like, just looking, because I love Shining Force 2. And I was like, man, this game does not suffer from that Sega Genesis soundtrack problem.
Doom had it the worst. Doom's soundtrack on the Sega was fucking awful.
Oh, God, for the 32X was
and it was like, Doom was better on Sega. No, it wasn't. Stop saying that.
You barely got half a game, though. If you're playing the 32X version of Doom, you got like 16 levels. You get to the Barrens of Hell, and that's game over.
Yeah.
Sega Genesis was fun. All the other systems, even my PlayStation 2. I mean, there's a reason why I've owned every single PlayStation, but the SNES is my favorite console.
Yeah, I don't exactly remember when I got a PS1. I think my brother got his first, and then I eventually got one. I don't remember how that worked, or he gave his to me, or I don't remember. But around the time that I had the PS1, one of my buddies, Eli, who lived a couple of houses down from me, he had a PlayStation. So he was my guide to like new games. It was like, oh, dude, I rented this game, or I bought this game. I remember we played like NFL Game Day, and I thought it was so fucking cool. I was like, this is better than Madden, and now I'm like, this game is fucking garbage. What was I thinking? But I remember he was the one who introduced me to Metal Gear Solid.
Oh, God, yeah.
And I had never seen anything like it or played anything like it. I remember that first opening scene when that music hit and Snake's going through the water. I was like, this is like a movie. Like, what is this? And I've never been so, at the time, taken back by a game. Metal Gear Solid fucking messed me up in a good way, because now I feel that when I play games, adventure games, solo games, the single player, if you're gonna have a big budget, you better bring that feeling. I want to feel like that. Like, I've been playing God of War lately, and God of War makes me feel that way. It's like, this is not just a game. Somebody put their fucking blood, sweat, and tears into this thing. It's beautiful, and it plays well, and the story is good.
I think the PlayStation 1 was very impressive in that the way that I saw the leap graphically and sound quality wise, it was with the SNES to the NES. When I saw that you could make games like the PlayStation ended up making, like Twisted Metal, where it just kind of drive around a city, and you're like, where does the city end? And it wasn't very big, not like GTA or anything, but at the time, there's more than one route in the freeway. Like, where am I going? Why are there so many buildings? How big is this place? Why is everybody fighting?
Fighting?
Like you said, like Metal Gear Solid, like that game was like, I didn't even know you could make a game like this. It was this. I remember when you first get to is it Outer Haven or Shadow Moses Island?
Yeah.
And you're in the snow, and I run around a box, and this guy like says, "Huh? Footprints?" And I was like, "Oh my god! Like, what are we?"
And you like freak out and you start sprinting around back to the beginning of the stage.
Yeah, I was like, "How do I do this?"
And then I remember messing with it. It's like, I'm gonna run around this box for like and see how many times he can go, and then he'll like walk around it for a while. I was like, whoa. oh, this is nuts.
Yeah, and there's a game like what is it, Intelligence Cube?
Oh my god,
super, like,
IQ
wow,
was so obscure, and I love that game.
Like, who thought to make that game? But they made it. You know, that was crazy. Jumping Flash was like a first-person platformer that came out for the system. There's
before there was a Mirror's Edge.
Yeah, it's long before there was Mirror's Edge. Silent Hill. You know, it was like Resident Evil. Like those games, kind of like. Oh, you can make games like this? This is games now, you know?
Yeah, this is games now?
Yeah, that was incredible. Where everything that came after that, to me, is, okay, we know these are just better looking, more refined versions of what we got around the PSX era. But those games all kind of like Final Fantasy VII, you know, what the fuck is this? What am I playing? Ridge Racer, you know, all these games like, this I'm sitting here on my living room playing this? You know, the PlayStation was the first system that ever produced a home console port of an arcade game that was better than the arcade. Like Soul Blade, which is the port of Soul Edge, is much better on the PlayStation than it is at an arcade.
Yeah.
Tekken 2 and Tekken 3 are both way better on the PlayStation than they are at an arcade. Just like hands down facts, you know? And I didn't know that was a thing that could happen.
I remember I went to my cousin's house and they had a PlayStation. I hadn't even seen a PlayStation yet by this time. I knew they existed, but I hadn't seen one. And I want to say they were playing Gran Turismo, but they were listening. They had turned the volume down and they were listening to fucking like Tupac and shit. But I remember listening to that Tupac song and watching them play. And like I said, I don't think it was Ridge Racer, but it could have been Ridge Racer. I just remember being a really pretty racing game that I had never seen that pretty before. Mm-hmm. And I remember just being mesmerized by it, like going, "Fuck, this looks so real."
Yeah,
you know. Now you're like, "What? Mm-hmm. This looks real." It's all fucking HD.
I think
4K.
Gran Turismo 3 was the first time I didn't realize I was looking at a game. The first time I saw it, you know, Gran Turismo was.
I remember one time, just a little aside, and we'll go back on track. But I remember playing NFL 2K, I think, and I was doing highlights. It was the NFL 2K. 7, I think, the one with Terrell Owens on the cover. I can't remember, but I remember we're doing the ESPN highlights, and Boomer comes on and he's doing the breakdown, and like the audio is really good. And my dad comes in, he's like, "What game is on right now? It's Wednesday." And I'm like, "Look, Dad, watch, the Cowboys are getting their ass kicked by the Packers." He's like, "What the hell? What channel is that?" And he was freaking out watching it, and he didn't realize that it was a video game because they had done so well with the editing and the audio. And I mean, even I remember we would be at GameStop or Game Crazy. I was working at Game Crazy, and we would turn it on. We would put the quarters to, you know, the actual, you know, length of an actual football game, and let it play out. Just like, oh yeah, watching a game like if it was real, you know, like while we were working and shit. Like that was some of that. That's when you started to really realize that shit could get out there. You know, it was going to get better.
As I've gotten older, I've come to view video games as like an art form, and it's a way to tell a story that is uniquely its own, and I really like that. I think part of the reason why it's hard to translate a video game into a good movie is because there is such a break in the way you consume that story.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big problem. And when I think about video games on a whole, I think of them being broken up. Video gamers, right? I broke them up into 4 categories. So there's casual video gamers, hardcore video gamers, competitive video gamers, and then speedrunners.
Oh,
I
nice.
think those 4 are probably the biggest, like,
what about the nerds?
Representation of video gamers. I think that anybody who plays video games will fit into one of those 4 categories.
I actually agree with that list. That's a pretty good list. I'm a very casual.
I know. I definitely feel that like there's a point where I was hardcore competitive.
Yeah.
You know, I played a lot of fighting games. But now I'm casual.
Yeah, you can kind of mix some of those up too, like little hybrids. Like I'm casual competitive.
Yeah, and competitive speedrunners. Yeah. Or, you know, like everyone who plays games tends to fall into one of those 4 categories, in my opinion. But it's fun to see all those different communities, and there seems to be something for everyone. And they kind of bring their own, I don't know, special nuance to the medium. You know,
yeah.
Like I really like the way that speedrunners will break down a game, and they're looking at frame data, and they're looking at, you know, how to shave off fractions of seconds over the span of 20 minutes, so they save themselves half a minute.
Yeah, that's like that's
the fastest way I can get from A to B. And I think it's really, really cool. And
I thought I was cool, and I would just jump backwards in Ocarina of Time.
Yeah.
Like, look how fast I am, guys.
Keep like sliding in Mega Man, you know, just slide, get there faster. Yeah. But yeah, those guys look at games differently. And then competitive gamers, they do the same thing, like frame data and shit like that. But there are
hitboxes.
But they're working on a competitive level against other players, you know. So their tutelage and their practice is different, you know. It's not just them against the game; it's them against another person.
Yeah.
And then the hardcore gamer is someone who might not even want to be competitive and they might not want to speedrun, but they will play all the games. You know, there are a lot of people that have come back to their hardcore roots because of Red Dead Redemption 2.
Yeah.
Like, I'm doing is playing it. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? You're right, because I'm getting very close to becoming hardcore again. Because like at first I was like, I just want to beat the story, and now I'm like, well, I got to get all the plans.
Well, I would still say that you're a hardcore gamer because you will buy games and you will beat them. You know,
I haven't beaten a game in a while.
You beat God of War? I thought you beat God of War.
No, I'm still playing it.
Are you?
Yeah, and that's because I told myself, no, I'm not gonna play Red Dead until I beat God of War. That didn't fall through. Yeah. I still haven't beat Breath of the Wild.
Oh, really?
I'm like, I just need one more fucking dungeon, and I can. I'm so powerful. I can fight Ganon right now, but I'm like, nah. I'm gonna go ahead and collect more fucking fruit and shit. Like, no, I can't remember the last time. The laundry list of games that I have not beaten, but I'm so close to the end, is ridiculous right now. Like, I could literally just in a weekend probably knock off all these games, and I just haven't. So,
but that's still like that's a lot of games that you play. Like,
I'll give you that.
I consider myself now to be completely casual. You know, like I will buy games, I especially buy fighting games, because I can turn them on for 20 minutes to an hour and I can just practice. And I'm not playing anybody, I'm not playing the computer, I'm just practicing combos or whatever, collecting trinkets. And I think like the last non-fighting game I played that was for any length of time was Destiny. And I took that pretty seriously, but I don't consider myself a gamer anymore. I'm not like a hardcore gamer, just like a casual, because I love to play games still. And I have my SNES Mini, and you know, I have my Dreamcast and shit. But
there's something nice about just turning on your SNES Mini and just picking a game that you remember playing and playing it for a little bit, like not even to completion. Like sometimes, like just like starting a game, like get to, you know, a halfway point through, you know, Super Mario World or playing Batman the animated series. Like I just love picking those games up, playing them for a little bit, and I'll jump like channel surfing. I'll just jump from game to game, and then I turn it off. And I'm like, go back to Red Dead.
that was fun.
Yeah, there's something nice about revisiting those old friends. It's real nice.
I'm gonna see, like, I tried to play Final Fantasy 15. I borrowed that from my nephew, and I played it for about, I don't know, 4 hours or something.
I remember you're like, dude, come check this game out. And I remember looking at it going, yeah, this is kind of cool. And I was like, you're not going to last in this. Like, you're not going to play this.
Yeah, there was a lot of cool things that I liked about it, but there was too much missing, you know? I tried to, like, because I'm kind of like a turn-based RPG fan, I don't like action RPGs very much, especially not what Final Fantasy has become. But I tried to, like, okay, this is this game now. It's not what I want it to be, so I have to, like, judge it on its own merit. And it was still fucking boring.
Yeah, it is.
I didn't like the characters. I didn't really care for the story, you know, but it was beautiful and the music was amazing. But I just couldn't get into it. And now I'm close to getting a copy of Spider-Man, the new PlayStation Spider-Man game, and I'll see, you know, how long I'll last on that.
I think you'll love it. I don't know if you'll beat it, but I think you'll get really close to beating it. I don't know. This might be the one that brings you back.
It might be the game. But I look forward to playing that. I like following the video game scenes. I love watching like speedrun marathons. I really love watching competitive Street Fighter tournaments, and I like seeing what's going on. And
I like watching completion videos of games that I've either never played or never wanted to play, just because I wanted to see what the big deal was. I like watching those. Those are cool. It's like,
I used to try and watch long plays, but now I don't like to. Like, I'll watch someone who's really good at a game play a game, you know.
Oh, well, not necessarily long plays. SNES, like, I get like the good chunks, you know, not like the game from beginning to end, but like
17 hours or something.
Yeah, I get the like just the chunks of it. Like they'll get into something, then speed it up, then get into something, speed it up, like. And usually, again, going back to like more older games, I was like, oh, I never played that game, like stuff like that. So, but yeah, if it's not Red Dead,
there are some games that I will watch from start to finish just because I really wanted it. Like, I played Silent Hill 4: The Room a little bit. I borrowed it from a friend of mine.
Yeah, I played that a little bit too.
I ended up giving it back to him, but I wanted to see it from start to finish, so I watched a long play. I watched a review of it, or I guess like it was like a strategy guide, you know, like a tip video that went from start to finish. So I watched that.
Confession time.
Like 3.
I played Silent Hill 3. I never got to play 2.
You never played 2?
I heard 2 was the best, like the better.
There are a lot of people that say that 2 is the best of the series.
Yeah. Well, because I mean, look at the graphics are so much fucking better. Like I still love the 1,
game.
But
like everything about that game, like everything that's great about Silent Hill came to its fruition. It's like the peak of what those games are about. It's met in Silent Hill 2. Silent Hill 1 is still my favorite.
Yeah. If you could just remake
Hill.
Silent Hill 1 perfect, keep everything the way it is, just remake it graphically, I would buy. If you were like, oh, this is going to be our PS5 system seller, guess what? I'm buying a PS5.
Yeah, Silent Hill 2 is a really, really good game.
Here's a good question. What were system sellers for you? Like, when a game was like, oh, this is the game that's going to launch with it, I'm going to have it?
Well, up until the PlayStation 1, I didn't really have a choice. Just like if I wanted a system or not. Mm-hmm. Just whatever my family could afford or what they had access to. And I would take it. Like, around the time that I had my Super NES, I would have taken a Genesis, and vice versa. And, like, there was a time where I did own a Genesis, and I didn't after a while. We had to sell it. But, like, with the PlayStation, I remember that coming out, and I think it was... I don't know exactly when the 64 came out. It has to come out after, right? The 64 came out after the PS1?
Yeah, because I remember my brother was all about the PS1, and then when I got a 64...
Oh, yeah, it came out, like, way after.
Yeah.
Duh, sorry. But for the PS1, the first game that I saw for it that really made me want it was Tekken. Tekken 1.
Nice.
And that looked fantastic. And Ultimate MK3 came out too, or not Ultimate, it was just MK3.
Yeah, Ultimate came out later.
It came out later, and that was almost arcade perfect, and it really was. Like, it looked fantastic. I remember I played a lot of MK3 at the arcade, and when I eventually got it for my PlayStation, I think it was a launch title. It was damn near arcade perfect, so it was a lot of fun to play. So those two for that, the PlayStation 2. Like, by then, I had started following, like, the quality of the system, so I knew that the PlayStation had a lot of good games in its library, and a lot of third-party developers going to do games for the PlayStation. So I knew when the PlayStation 2 was going to come out, I was going to buy it.
Yeah, I remember you like had like a magazine. And you were showing me all like the specs and shit. Yeah, we were in class. I think it was art class. And this dude was like looking at Street Fighter Third Strike or Double Impact. I can't remember which was the one that came out for.
That was for the Dreamcast.
Oh, that was Dreamcast? Because I remember you were like, look, the Gi moves when he throws a fireball.
Oh, yeah, that was a long time ago.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, I just remember that. But I remember you, didn't you, like... I remember you came into school late.
It's because that was the night that when it launched in America, I went around the city and tried to find one. And they were all kind of like spoken for, except for in the south side of town, there was a Walmart that had 6 PlayStation 2s. And there were like 4 people in line, and it was like midnight. I got off of work at midnight, and I got some Whataburger, and I went down, and I stayed outside of that Walmart, and they're like, we're just going to stay here all night until they open the next day. And so I was the 5th, and then we got another person, and they came, and they were the 6th. So we just stayed there all night, and when they opened in the morning, I got my PlayStation. I had to go to school that day, and what I brought was like instruction book.
Yeah, that's right, because I remember you were so exhausted.
I was exhausted.
And I was so, like, I was going to be mad at you, because you came in late, but I was like, if this dude doesn't show up for school, because I didn't, having art class without Gonzalo was boring. So I was like, if this dude doesn't show up, and he did, my boy showed up, and he had a little thing, and I was so jealous.
I was wrecked.
Yeah, you were. And then I felt bad. I was like, oh, I'm so selfish, but I don't care. I need my best friend here.
But yeah, so the PlayStation already had a good pedigree and had a good history behind it. Things that came close were like Gears of War for the 360, Halo for the first Xbox, Cuphead for Xbox One. Like, Xbox has always been like a swing and a miss, like a base hit as far as I'm concerned. I got close to 360 because of Gears of War, and also because their online play was a little better, and I was still playing a lot of Street Fighter and Marvel and stuff, so I wanted a better connection. But what about you? Would you have like system sellers for you?
Oh, anything. If Zelda was going to come out on a system, I was getting it. Even if it wasn't going to be a launch title, anything with the Zelda name attached to it. Like, Nintendo could say, hey, we're coming out with a new system next year, and be like, dude, you just came out with the Switch. But it's like, yeah, but the new Zelda's going to be on, and I would get it. It's
so if Virtual Boy would have had a Zelda game, would you have bought it?
Ooh, good question. Probably. Yeah. I mean, again, it sounds like I'm this fucking super diehard Zelda fan, and I kind of am, but I've been very nitpicky with the games I've played. I've kind of dipped my toes in everything, but I haven't beaten everything. I will always buy a system for a Zelda game because I love them. I
remember I had a copy of Wind Waker for a little bit when I was living with my eldest sister, and she had a GameCube, and I wanted to play it. A friend let me borrow it, and it just sat on top of my TV. Just never played it.
I remember when that fiasco came out, and everyone was shitting all over Zelda because of the graphics, and it looked like a cartoon, it looked like it was for kids, and I remember being like one of the only voices in my area and my friend circles going, it's a Zelda game, it's gonna be phenomenal.
Yeah, it's gonna be good.
And everyone was shitting on it, and it came out, and I remember buying it on my GameCube and turned it on, and I played it, and that intro to this day still gives me goosebumps. I love that intro where you kind of put it together. It's like, you know, they're talking about the hero of time. They're talking about the events from Ocarina of Time, and then it's like, and then when Ganon returned, the hero never came. It's like, wait, what? You're like, oh my god, it was so good. I love that game so much. So, a side note, I got to the end of that game, and it's one of the Zelda games that I have not quote-unquote beat, but I got to the end, and I remember I saved, and I was like, I'm going to save this. Like, I'm going to save right now because I'm going to play this tomorrow, because it was like 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to play this tomorrow when I'm fresh, and I'm going to beat the fuck out of Ganon, and it's going to be awesome. And the next day, I remember coming home, I turned it on, and my memory card was corrupt. I don't know what I did between, and maybe while I was saving it, I turned it off or something. But all my save file, and that memory card was just for my Zelda game. I know that sounds ridiculous, but I was like, no, I bought a memory card for Zelda. Then there was my special black and gold memory card, and my save data was corrupt, and I had to delete it, and I did not have the strength or the heart to start it again. So to this day, I have not beaten Wind Waker, but I got to the end. And I've seen it a million times on YouTube, that ending that I never got to get. So that sucks.
I really like that there's a whole group of like diehard fans out there that will follow a franchise or a title through thick and thin. And I try to be loyal like that, but I think the only series I may have ever played every game in its franchise is Street Fighter.
Yeah, I was going
to say. It has to be it, though.
Yeah.
I do also like that we can kind of pick and choose. So like Resident Evil's a huge series, but I've played 1, I beat 2, and I beat 4, and I beat 5. I always forget that I beat 5.
I beat 1 and I beat 2.
But that's it. I've never done a deeper dive on it. I played Code Veronica for a little bit. Didn't like 3. Never bought it for a system. I've never owned a Resident Evil game. Not a single one. You know? And I'm trying to think of other franchises. Like Zelda. I love The Legend of Zelda because Link to the Past is one of my favorite games of all time. I really like the first one. Really like the second one. And then I can't recall. I played Ocarina, I think, for a little bit. A friend let me borrow their 64 for like 2 weeks. And so I tried to get as much. I played Killer Instinct Gold. I played the South Park first-person shooter. And
oh God, you played that?
Yeah, I did. It was awesome.
Did you? You really?
Yes, I love that game.
Oh man.
And then I played Ocarina of Time, and I just didn't have enough time to get into any of them really deep. And I watched you play Twilight Princess for a while. I've seen Wind Waker, Minish Cap, and all that.
I rebought that on my fucking on my Wii. What's it? Wii U. I rebought it because I was gonna like determined to do it again. And I bought it, and I was playing it, and I got like a halfway point, and I forgot there was a game that came out, and I just stopped playing it. So that's another one that I need to continue on, because I need to beat that game. Like, there's certain Zelda titles I'm like, no, I need to beat that one. Ocarina. I wasn't a big fan of Majora, but I think I need to revisit it because I think when I played Majora's Mask, I was expecting Ocarina 2, and it's not. It's just like a continuation of that saga, but it's like a completely different adventure. It has nothing to do with Ganon, and
like you want some more Ocarina. It's like to me, Majora's Mask seemed like the first DLC. You know, it was like downloadable content.
That's exactly what it seems
mission,
like.
right?
Yeah. It was more Ocarina with new mechanics, new gameplay, and a new story, and from everything.
But it wasn't a sequel.
But it wasn't a true Ganon returns again. Like nope, it had nothing to do with that. And I think that's what I was looking for then. But now older, I'm like, because my nephew Mikey is a big Majora's Mask fan, and he's told me a lot of he loves Majora's Mask, and he's told me a lot about it, and he gets me excited for it. And I'm like, damn, that sounds really good. You know, it's like I think I wasn't ready for it. I'm older now, so maybe if I'm ever able to grab it again, maybe I'll give it another chance. But Ocarina, I beat like 3 different times. Twilight Princess, I had it on the Wii with the motion controls, and I fucking couldn't stand it, and that's why I didn't beat it. But I liked what I was playing. I liked what I was seeing, and I wanted to play more, but I just couldn't continue on with those controls. I never got to play Skyward Sword. I didn't want to invest the money in a Zelda game on the Wii that wasn't really going any further, you know. So I didn't hear a lot of great things about it. So I should have still played it. I don't give a fuck what people say, but
now like the way that as we get older, we have to be more mindful of the money that we spend. So you know,
yeah, for sure.
It is good to like come to your own conclusions, but definitely use reviews and stuff. You don't want to like listen to word of mouth and like.
Well, I trusted reviews, not just any review. I agree with you.
And is it, like as far as like following a reviewer goes, for me, it's like find people that seem to have similar tastes,
yes,
or understand bits of the game or see it the way that you kind of see it,
yeah.
and you go, okay, well, my tastes fall in line with theirs. So if they don't like something, that doesn't mean that I won't like it, but chances are I won't like it.
Yeah, for sure. Resident Evil wise, 1, 2, 3 beat. I was going to beat Codename Veronica, but I fucked up a save state. I was going to fight the boss, and I put all my weapons... I don't even know if it was the final part. It might not even been the final boss, but I put all my weapons into the bin because I wanted fucking Chris to have them, not knowing that boss was going to be... I mean, not Chris... fucking what's her name? Claire. I don't remember how I did it. I just remember I put all my weapons in the bin, and I just kept one gun, and then a cutscene takes over after that. And I deleted all my saves for whatever reason. It's like fucking Resident Evil 101. You make sure you have multiple saves. I deleted all of them, and they wind up destroying like the stairs, and the two characters get trapped. And I was just so happened to be Chris, and I only was like a Magnum and like 12 shots, and that was it. So once I expelled all my shots, and that was it, and I didn't have the heart to start that over again either, so I was like, fuck that game. And then, of course, Resident Evil 4, I beat several times. I fucking adore that game. Resident Evil 5, I beat several times. I love that game. I don't give a shit what anybody says. That game was so fun. 6 was fucking atrocious. 6 was one of the worst Resident Evil games I've ever played. I think franchise-wise, if it's not a Zelda game or I think I could say Resident Evil, I've stayed pretty loyal to them.
Yeah. You played 0 and...
Yeah, 0 I played. I beat it. The last one, Resident Evil 7, was fucking great. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And then the Resident Evil 2 remake coming out. Oh my god, I can't wait. I feel like that's going to be like, we should have everyone come over, grab some popcorn, some pizzas, some drinks, and let's play that game through. I think that would be awesome.
That'd be kind of cool, but that could be a little boring too, you know? Or like one person's playing a game. It depends on like
you're
what
old.
It is, but that sounds boring to me. I can't think of a lot of franchises that have such a high win percentage, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Resident Evil, Super Mario Brothers, Zelda, I think those are probably some standouts. And depending on who you ask, Metroid, Street Fighter, and there are a million that we're missing, but these are the like games that really seem to stick out, and they're the franchises that kind of like follow us and evolve as we get older. And I really dig that. I like the Final Fantasy series is constantly trying to maintain its reputation, and it seems to be failing. Like every new Final Fantasy that comes out is a bigger disappointment than the last one was, in my opinion. Who knows? Maybe in 2045 we'll get that Final Fantasy 7 remake. It'll be shit. I don't know. Like,
wasn't it gonna be like episodic or something too?
Yeah, and it's supposed to be like the active battle system and all this other shit. Like in a way I don't want to play it, you know, I'm just not interested in it.
Yeah.
Like I'll watch a speedrun of it or whatever. Not really into it. I do really enjoy the act of sitting down, have a controller in my hand, and enjoy a story in an interactive medium like video games. And it's been pretty impressive that it's an art form that hasn't really suffered during the Great Recession. It hasn't been something that has really taken any kind of serious financial hit. There are always video games and
I think people are always saving up for that next game. They're like, no, even me, it's like, oh man, bills are tight, money's tight, but you know, a couple bucks here and there, like boom.
And there are like free games that, you know, really seem to take off, or something like, I think League of Legends is free.
Warframe, Fortnite.
Those are Angry Birds. There's like games that were free, that are still free, that are just fantastic, and people made great games, and the masses joined in, and everyone high-fived over it, you know? Yeah,
for sure. I feel that there needs to be more games like that, where it's like, oh no, the game's 100% free, but we monetize through, you know, what's that shit called? The
microtransactions?
Yeah, but for like cosmetic, you know, nothing that's gonna break the game when it comes to like, you know, advantage. But
it would be nice if there were that many good games made.
Yeah, no, for sure, because
there are tons of free games out there. It's just they're not as
like I was playing because I've been really big into the battle royale. I bought Black Ops 4 because they had the blackout mode. Well, obviously this I mean, well, it's not obvious to you guys yet, but you will eventually realize that my family and I are really big into Fortnite. So we really enjoy the Fortnite, the Battle Royale games, and I tried playing that H1Z1, and that fucking game is awful. It's like, but people are like, nah, H1Z1's badass and it's free, and I'm like, It plays like it's free. Like it looks like it's free. Like
oh no, I know it's free.
Yeah, I know it's free. It's just awful. Like no, and it makes me appreciate Fortnite even more. I got to play PUBG a little bit, and I thought that was fucking awful. And you have to pay for it. No, thank you. Like I'm okay. So I just thought that was funny. But yeah, I wish there were more games. And I know it's easier said than done, but I wish there was more stuff like a Warframe where it's like, oh wow, the mechanics are really nice, graphics are really good, they're not fucking amazing, not triple fucking A artwork, but very serviceable. And honestly, I mean that's actually being very rude about it. Like, no, they're
kind of harsh. That game is really good looking.
Yeah, yes, it's very good looking. I guess I couldn't think of a better way to say that. Very good graphics, mechanics are good, the gameplay is good, the gunfire is good. It's just so great. I wish there was more stuff out there like that because I think I've spent a total of like $80 on Warframe from the very first time I downloaded it to now, and none of it I have regretted none of it. Nice. Like it's like this game deserves every penny I've put into Warframe. I feel like it's deserved it, and I wish there was more like that. Every penny I poured into Destiny. They do not deserve the pennies that I poured into it. Some of it,
some of it.
But Taken King, fuck yeah, I was more than happy to pay for that, and I was very happy with the results. But
everything that I ever spent money on or needed to have paid for Destiny, none of it was worth more than $60. Yeah, all of it combined,
I could see that.
Worth $60.
But yeah, I could totally see that. I know that if games. Okay, so someone told me this, and I thought this was really interesting. Someone said that Madden, and I'm gonna touch on this for 2 seconds. That Madden football games should become basically a free-to-play game, and that they should constantly do DLC updates of the roster and like little game mechanics, and pay money toward that like yearly. And I kind of dig that. EA will never do that, but I kind of dig that. Like a DLC program in which, it's like, oh, we have 20 new plays, $5, or $10, or this new 2019 roster, updated for $10, and your 100% roster. The draft classes are 100% updated. Everything's updated. New uniforms, throwback uniforms, 99 cents each. You know what I mean? Like,
I think that's a perfect model.
Feel that would be awesome because they're not changing anything about the mechanics of the game. Like it's the same fucking game every year.
Yeah,
so
it's football.
Yeah, it's like it's not like you're really pushing the graphical power. It's fucking this game looks kind of like last year's game, and last year's game looks kind of like the year before.
Yeah, you put the effort into making a really, really stellar Madden game, which I don't feel has happened for a really long time.
Like, I don't. Yeah, I
from your opinion, you know what I mean? Because someone who plays a lot of Madden, like you're someone who does. So
this was the first year I didn't buy a Madden.
Yeah, to see like if they buckled down and made a hell of a fucking Madden game, like Madden 2021, and then like you said, from then on, it's just like World of Warcraft, it's just update the rosters and like you pay for new uniforms or new coaches or whatever it may be, new stadiums or whatever. I think people would be happy with that, and I think there's a lot of money to be made there instead of I'm sure there's probably numbers. It just seems like nobody talks about Madden anymore, other than to like, I'm not gonna get this here, or I'm not into it, or
you don't really hear about it too much anymore.
And any like used electronics store is just flush with old sports games.
Bad. It's bad.
NHL, MLB, NBA, NFL. They're all just like from this year backwards. Just like $1. You can't get fucking.
Yeah.
And I like wonder if there's like a favorite. Like NHL 2010 was the best hockey. If you want to play a hockey game, play that one.
Yeah, I know that NFL 2K game I was talking about was probably the last greatest football game ever made.
Yeah, the one for the Dreamcast that we played, NFL 2K1. I remember we started playing that.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun.
That was
probably the last football game I played.
There was NFL 2K5. That's the one with Terrell Owens on the cover. That was the last great NFL football game ever made. Yeah. Like no Madden has ever come close to that. And honestly, I've been waiting for somebody to like mod the fuck out of it and update the graphics. But it's like I would buy a PC if someone mods NFL 2K, updates the graphics a little bit, and like updates the roster. I'll buy a PC tomorrow.
Yeah, that would be cool.
That would be awesome. I'm sure there's some reason why someone hasn't done it, or maybe they haven't. I just not in those circles or YouTubes or whatever. But that would be awesome.
Yeah, video games suffer a bit from the stigma that something like comic books do, and that those are just for kids, or those are just one specific thing. It's like, no, it's like if you're into having fun, if you're into being stimulated, if you're into music or art, there's probably 20 video games that are worth it for you in your time. Same with comics, you know, like if you're into story, there's a comic for you out there, and that's pretty cool. I really like exposing people who maybe aren't or feel like they're not gamers, you know, like not even that they're snobs, but they're just like, oh, I don't think I can get it. I don't think there's a game for me, you know, like it's too much. I can't keep up. It's like, no, you could, you know, like there's
you just have to find the right game.
Yeah, there's nothing supernatural about what we do. Like a lot of us pride ourselves on our skill to work a controller, but it's just because it takes practice, you know. We've just done it so often and so many times. But you can bring anyone in and have them play a game, and they'll find something that they love. They'll find something that brings them joy, helps them kill the hours, and something that they like, oh, I'm starting to get good at it. I mean, it's hard to find someone who A, doesn't know what Tetris is, and B, doesn't like Tetris, you know? Like,
yeah, no shit.
It's simple, and everybody gets it, and everyone loves it. And like, Bejeweled for a long time was like everybody's like casual favorite game.
Oh God, so many people played that fucking game.
I know, and it's a great game. Like, Bejeweled is a fun, great game. What was it? Plants vs. Zombies was something too that was kind of all over the place, you know?
Yeah, because I remember Mark used to play the hell out of that. My son, he played the hell out of that. Have you ever played these like walking simulator games, like Gone Home or
like Myst and shit?
Well, I guess I didn't know Myst was a walking. I thought it was just like a point and click. There's one like Firewatch. There's another one that's really beautiful looking, and I can't remember the hell of what the title is. It's like you play this like little mystical, like I think it looks like a female, and she looks like she floats everywhere. And, you know what I'm talking about? Like almost cel shaded.
Like PS4.
Yeah, it's a PS4 title. Like there's. And I don't know,
Siren or something.
Something like that. I can't remember, but there's a lot of games like that I've actually been kind of interested in. I kind of want to know what you think about those titles, because I've seen them and they look beautiful, and they're like.
I know the one that you're talking about. I really wanted to play it, but like because I'm such a casual gamer now, like I just can't justify spending the money on them. But like you know, like if I found that game for like $5, I might buy it.
Yeah. Why? That's why I was bringing it up, because I think I saw it on sale or something. Like, I think it's on sale.
I'm definitely gonna check. Like I'm hoping that in our gaming group that people like Albert will post the sales over this weekend. So
the Black Friday sales,
and Cyber Monday and shit, and hopefully like the PSN will have some really cool discounts, you know, and maybe I'll snatch up a few games for real cheap.
there's been a couple already, but I kind of want to wait too, like a Cyber Monday. I think Madden's on sale for $20 or $30 or something. So I was like, maybe this won't be the year that I don't get a Madden. But well, I guess my next question, and this is a big one: what is a series of games or a franchise that you wish would come back super strong? Because for me, it kind of goes back to that Castlevania. You know, again, I know I didn't play a lot of them in the past. Symphony of the Night was the best. The handheld ones were fucking phenomenal. I didn't like when they were starting to go to 3D, even though I heard Lords of the Shadows was pretty cool, but I don't want to play a God of War game. Like it seemed like God of War, or maybe even Silent Hill would probably be my
the
next
last
big
Castlevania
one.
that came out was like a reboot of the series.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I think you play as Dracula. Like I think it's actually Dracula. Like it's before all of it happens, and I thought that was kind of cool, but I never got more into it. But what's something for you, like a franchise that you're like, dude, if they could come back and hit hard, I would love that.
Battletoads?
I heard there's a Battletoads game coming out. Yes.
I was just thinking of like, because there's a Streets of Rage 4 that's about to come out, and that's exciting. I'm kind of interested in that. Yeah, I think a really, really good Battletoads game would make me happy. I would say Silent Hill, but after PT and everything that's happened over Konami, I'm just, you know.
I know, but this is your like, no, they would fix all of that. Like if you could get,
but like to have that kind of like untapped potential. Like knowing what Silent Hills was gonna be, you know, like that thing still exists.
But that's what I'm saying. It's like, no, you're gonna get your Silent Hills.
If I could just get PT, like complete, then yeah, I would do that.
Okay.
It would be PT in a second. I want to see Silent Hills. It's a completion.
Yeah, I think I would too. I would really love Halo to come back to glory. The last couple of Halos I was so disappointed with. I feel like I've held on to my Xbox One in hopes that I was going to get the next great Halo, and it never came. And I don't see a reason to ever get a new Xbox until that Halo comes back to me.
I would be surprised if some of those great franchises ever come back. I
we
feel
moved on.
yeah, like Zelda, like Mario Brothers and stuff. Like they continue to put out great games, so they'll never go away. But something that like takes such a bad turn,
Yeah.
like we probably won't get another great Gears of War game. We probably won't get another great Halo game. We probably won't get a great Destiny game. We won't get a great Silent Hill game. All these ones are they're over, and even Resident Evil, I think with like a remake is a bit of a, I don't know, it's like a conceit. They're making a concession to like, we're not necessarily sure if we're gonna make another great one, even though 7 was really really good, but we can remake one of our greatest. And it's like, oh, now they can just do that. They can just do what Disney's doing, and it's like, we'll just repackage the good ones that everybody loved. You're like, you guys like Dumbo, right? Well, here's a live action version of it. You guys like Jungle Book, right? Here's a live action version of it. Like,
yeah,
it's like dummies, buy it again.
Which is so funny because I am one of those dummies, because with the Nintendo Switch, like everyone's like, oh, well, it can't handle the power of all these new games.
No, but I was gonna say is games are I understand remaking video games. I don't like the remaking of movies like that. It's like, oh, it's a cartoon, and now we're making it live action. It's like not live action. It's like one person that's human there, all the rest is CGI.
Yeah, I've come to the conclusion that I am this person that if the Nintendo Switch releases pretty much everything that was on the Wii or the Wii U and just updates the graphics a little bit or not, I'm gonna buy them. Like I've come to that conclusion. RE4, I mean, you could literally come out with a fucking Mario Tennis or Mario Kart 64 and make it full price, and I'd probably buy it because I'm excited for that, because I want it on my handheld. I want it on a Switch.
Yeah,
take it wherever.
The Switch makes a lot of sense because it's handheld. You can take it anywhere, and the graphic fidelity hardly drops. So
yeah,
that's a reason to do it. I don't see any problem with that. I don't think anyone's dumb for doing that. Makes a lot of sense to me.
I can't wait. I hope they do it all.
It's not
everything.
It's nice to, like, part of the reason why I'll buy like Symphony of the Night on every system is because I love the game, but it's also because I don't want to have to plug in a different system. I'd like to have everything on one system, which we're hoping that after the next generation of consoles will be a thing, to where I won't have to like hold on to my PS1, PS2, my Dreamcast, my this or that. I can just have everything on my PS5, hopefully. That would be pretty great. I don't think that's gonna happen. We'll see where it goes. That's interesting. But,
yeah, for sure.
But video games are a really interesting, fun, inventive art form, and I really enjoy it. I'm going to be around for it all, for as long as I'm alive. I'm not constantly going to be a hardcore gamer, but I'm always going to be playing video games.
There was a while where I thought that I was actually getting out of the game scene. Like, I was like, I think I'm done with video games, like Destiny broke my heart. There wasn't really anything really worth keeping my attention, and then the Switch came and hit me in the face, and then all these PS4 titles are just... they're just knocking me on my ass. I mean, God of War, Red Dead. I can't wait to freaking play the new Devil May Cry. The only thing that I wish they would do, even though I feel like they've swung and a miss with every attempt, I still want a good Killzone game, and I can't get a good Killzone game. Like, none of them have really felt very good. And I don't know what the fuck the problem is with that, but oh well.
I think. Do you think maybe it's like you just don't like Killzone?
No, I love Killzone. I like everything about it. Oh, the control. Yeah, the controls are bad.
Oh, that's Killzone though.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like, oh, I don't want to like a False Roman cancel in Guilty Gear. I wanted to play like Street Fighter. It's like, but this is Guilty Gear. We do False Roman cancel. You know what I mean?
Well, it's not. Okay, hold on. Let me correct that. It's not just the controls. The controls are fine. It's not like button configuration or anything like that. No. It's more of the mechanics of the game does not feel as fluid as pretty much 90% of the shooter market. I always feel that Killzone is like, oh man, your graphics are cool, your story is pretty cool, and of course the characters you're fighting look really cool, and like I feel like they've really captured the grittiness of like futuristic combat. But it's like, it's the accuracy of the weapons. It's how you feel when you're aiming down sights. I feel like there's a lot of offness to it, but it's not like the offness you get is like, oh, this feels very realistic. It's not that. It's just like, no, this feels off. Like someone's trying to emulate Call of Duty or Halo. Like you're trying, but you just haven't figured out what makes those games so crisp, so buttery, And I think that's what it is about Killzone, because I will make excuses for fucking Killzone until I can't make excuses anymore. I'm like, okay, this is getting a little silly. I'm done. You know what I mean? I think that's what it is. It's the movement. It's how it actually plays, but not in a good way. It's not like, oh, this is Killzone. This is how it plays. It's like,
it plays crappy.
Yeah, it's not playing to its full potential. That's what I mean. Yes, exactly.
Well, did you have anything else you wanted to say on the subject?
No, I think we touched on everything. I mean, like you were saying, I mean, video games have just been such a huge part of our lives, a huge part of my life. You know, some of my fondest and greatest memories. There's nothing that feels better than knowing that you're about to play games with family. You know, I know me and my family will get together. We have Mario Kart parties, Smash Brothers parties.
I've been privy to these parties.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get nuts. I have a niece, you know, she's not a little girl anymore, but when she was younger, she would get so into it, and like she would lose her cool. The sweetest human being ever. I mean, practically ripped out of the pages of a fucking Disney book. But when she plays Mario Kart, she's over here like ready to choke you and curse up a storm. So, or even like, again, like we kind of touched on the last podcast, where we would get together with friends and, you know, sit around in a living room, passing the controller, playing fighting games. Like, these are those bread breaking memories, you know, moments where you just like telling old stories at a campfire kind of thing, but you're interacting with them. I just think that I can't wait to see what the future holds when it comes to the gaming. I hope that we get a lot of stuff that's going to still continue to blow our minds, because just when you think you feel like, okay, you know, we've reached the pinnacle, I've heard every story, I've seen everything, games, something like The Last of Us comes and makes you cry, and I'm like, dude, I haven't cried at a fucking video game in forever, and Last of Us made me cry like a little bitch. You know, or scare you. Like, I didn't think I could be scared anymore. Then you play something like PT, and that demo scares the shit out of you. You know, and like we played it last night or the couple of nights ago, and it was still scary. And I played it like 8 million different times to show people, and it still freaks me out. You know, the next great adventure game, I was playing Uncharted 4, going, oh, this is fucking fantastic. I just love this. This is mindless adventure. You know, I just love it. I can't wait to see what the future holds, and I can't wait to see what the next game that me and you are going to get addicted to, because I'm waiting. I was out of the game for a while, but I know that game is coming. Besides DBZ, I know something's coming, and my boy will be back.
Yeah, every like E3 and Tokyo Game Show and stuff, I'm always kind of like holding my breath and like, I wonder what the next big thing's gonna be. You know, looking forward to a PS5 announcement. You know, I'm really looking forward to this next generation of consoles and seeing where video games go. And I feel that there isn't much that's holding any story back anymore. So
yeah, absolutely.
It's exciting. I'm really looking forward to the future. You want to take us out?
Yeah. Thank you for listening to the End of the Internet podcast. This was episode 4. Please follow us on Twitter at EOTI_podcast. We also have an email that you can send messages, you know, questions, anything you want to talk about or for us to talk about at endoftheinternet@gmail.com. We'll be having a Facebook and a Instagram coming as soon as possible. I'm going to launch those at ASAP. But as for now, go hit us up on Twitter, like and subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, and again, shoot us a comment. We'd love to hear from you guys. So thank you very much for listening. My name's Marcus.
I'm Gonzalo, and you have been listening to the End of the Internet podcast, and this is the end of the episode. Y'all have a good night.
Good night.